You sip your morning coffee, the bitterness sharp on your tongue, the steam curling into shapes that vanish as quickly as they form. But what if the cup isn't real? What if the bitterness, the heat, the ceramic roughness under your fingertips are illusions, electrical whispers fed to a brain floating in silent darkness? The brain in a jar experiment isn't just a philosophical gag. It's a live wire pressed against the foundation of human experience. Consider this: your memories, your relationships, the very concept of self could be hallucinations crafted by a mad scientist or a rogue AI. The terrifying beauty of this idea lies in its simplicity. Strip away the body, the world, the universe. All you're left with is a lump of grey matter and a lie so convincing it feels like truth. But if the lie is indistinguishable from reality, does the distinction even matter? Or is the act of questioning the lie the only truth we have? Neuroscience offers no refuge. We've known for decades that the brain constructs reality like a filmmaker edits a movie. Your eyes don't see. They send chaotic signals that your mind smooths into coherent images. Colors are wavelengths filtered through biological bias. Sounds are vibrations translated into meaning. Philosopher Nick Bostrom argued that if advanced civilizations exist, they'd likely simulate universes, making it probable we're living in one. But the brain in a jar strips this to its essence. You don't need a universe. A single brain, a vat, and a malevolent puppeteer could orchestrate an entire lifetime of fabricated joy and suffering. Imagine discovering your greatest triumph. Graduating college, landing your dream job, was scripted. Your grief over lost loved ones, pre-programmed. Your free will, a myth. Yet here's the rub. Even your rebellion against this idea would be part of the code. Every epiphany, every doubt, every scream into the void, predetermined. Let's make it visceral. Meet subject 247. A brain suspended in nutrient fluid since birth, fed a lifetime of synthetic experiences. To 247, the simulation is indistinguishable from reality. It falls in love with a digital phantom, grieves a parent who never existed, and wonders about mortality while staring at a simulated night sky. Now, suppose we introduce a glitch, a crack in the facade. A stranger's face repeats in a crowd. A book's text scrambles mid-sentence. Would 247 dismiss these as déjà vu, a trick of the light? Or would it sense the scaffolding of its prison? History says we'd rationalize it. Humans excel at stitching chaos into narrative. We call UFOs weather balloons, dismiss coincidences as fate. Even phantom limb syndrome, a vivid ache in a non-existent arm, proves reality is a story we tell ourselves. The brain clings to coherence like a lifeline. But here's where the paradox erupts. If consciousness can thrive without a body, what is it? A biological fluke? A pattern of energy? Buddhist monks and quantum physicists converge here. The self is an illusion. fMRI scans show no CEO in the brain, just transient neural networks. So even if you're a brain in a jar, the you fearing this idea is itself a mirage. The observer dissolves into the observed. The jar, the simulation, the puppeteer all vanish in the hall of mirrors. Yet we cling to the illusion. Why? Because without it, society crumbles. If nothing is real, why care about justice, love, or truth? But what if that's the revelation? What if embracing the illusion, not as a lie, but as a collaborative art, is the path to freedom? Consider an alternate ending. Suppose we dance with the jar. Reality becomes a canvas, not a cage. Mystics and psychedelic voyagers report ego death. a state where the self evaporates, merging with the infinite. Could a brain in a vat achieve this, or would it spiral into madness? A 1973 experiment offers a clue. Rats wired to stimulate their pleasure centers ignored food. Mates, even survival, pressing the lever until death. Now imagine a brain in a jar, hooked to a dopamine drip, forever chasing synthetic bliss. Would it choose truth over addiction? Or would it, like the rats, press the lever? The question isn't hypothetical. Social media algorithms already hijack our reward pathways, crafting realities that keep us docile, addicted, scrolling. Are we the users or the used? But here's the twist. The brain's greatest weapon is its ability to transcend. Mathematics, beauty, love. These concepts feel universal. A simulated brain could still solve Riemann's hypothesis, weep at Van Gogh's Starry Night, grasp the elegance of quantum entanglement. Do these truths rely on physicality, or do they exist in a Platonic realm, accessible to any conscious mind? Quantum pioneer Max Tegmark argued math is the universe's native language. If so, the brain's discoveries aren't illusions. They're bridges to something eternal. The jar becomes irrelevant, the simulation a subplot. The mind touches the infinite. You're offered a choice. Step into a machine that grants every desire. Career triumph, undying love, adventures beyond imagination, or keep your messy, unpredictable, real life. The catch? Once inside, you'll forget the machine exists. Your fabricated life will feel as vivid as this sentence. Would you plug in? Philosopher Robert Nozick posed this question in 1974, but today, it's no longer hypothetical. With VR headsets, AI-generated worlds, and dopamine-triggering algorithms, we're already flirting with the experience machines promise. Yet most recoil. Why? Because beneath the allure of painless perfection lurks a terrifying truth. We crave reality, even when it hurts. But what if reality is already a simulation? What if the machine isn't a choice? It's the default. Let's dissect the paradox. Nozick argued that humans reject the machine because we value being and doing over mere feeling. A climber doesn't summit Everest for the rush of triumph. They crave the struggle, the risk, the authenticity of earned sweat. But modernity rebels. Instagram filters smooth our flaws. Dating apps algorithmically curate perfect matches. ChatGPT drafts our love letters. We're outsourcing lived experience to machines, yet still cling to the myth of authenticity. Why? Because deep down, we sense that a life without friction is a life without meaning. Neuroscientists confirm this. The brain releases more dopamine when effort precedes reward. A rigged slot machine bores us. A hard-won victory electrifies. The experience machine's fatal flaw isn't its illusion, it's its perfection. But let's weaponize the thought experiment. Imagine you do plug in. For 50 years you live as a Nobel-winning scientist, a loving parent, a globe-trotting artist. Then the machine glitches. You wake up shivering in a pod, your muscles atrophied, your life erased. The technician apologizes. Would you like to re-enter the simulation? Here's the catch. Your memories reset. You'll never know this conversation happened. Would you go back? Most say no, but replace the machine with modern analogues, endless Netflix binges, TikTok doom scrolling, Xanax blurred tranquility. Aren't we already choosing the pod? The difference is scale, not substance. We're dipping toes into the machine, not diving in yet. Here's where the rupture happens. If the experience machine erases suffering, why does suffering matter? Buddhism claims it's the path to enlightenment. Nietzsche insisted it's the forge of greatness. But what if both are wrong? What if suffering is just evolutionary static? A bug, not a feature. Studies show rats with electrodes implanted in their pleasure centers will starve to self-stimulate. Humans aren't so different. Cocaine addicts, compulsive gamblers, binge watchers, all chase the machine's shadow. Yet we still romanticize struggle. Is this wisdom or a Stockholm syndrome of the soul? The contradiction deepens. Suppose we engineer a better machine, one that lets you retain awareness. You know it's fake, but the joy feels real. The grief, though simulated, still cracks your heart. Now, the choice mutates. Is authenticity about origin or impact? If a machine-generated hug eases loneliness, is it less valid? If an AI-written poem moves you, is the emotion counterfeit? This isn't speculative, it's happening. Deepfake videos of deceased loved ones console mourners. Replica AI bots provide therapy. The machine isn't coming, it's here, and we're welcoming it, not with terror, but gratitude. But here's the ultimate twist. The machine exposes us, not reality. When given the choice between curated bliss and raw existence, our refusal isn't noble, it's hypocritical. We vilify the machine while guzzling its shallow cousins, bingeable entertainment, cosmetic surgery, Adderall-fueled productivity. The machine's sin isn't deception, it's honesty. It strips away our delusions of control. We don't fear the simulation. We fear confronting how much we've already outsourced to it. You sip your morning coffee, the bitterness sharp on your tongue, the steam curling into shapes that vanish as quickly as they form. But what if the cup isn't real? What if the bitterness, the heat, the ceramic roughness under your fingertips are illusions, electrical whispers fed to a brain floating in silent darkness? The brain in a jar experiment isn't just a philosophical gag. It's a live wire pressed against the foundation of human experience. Consider this: your memories, your relationships, the very concept of self could be hallucinations crafted by a mad scientist or a rogue AI. The terrifying beauty of this idea lies in its simplicity. Strip away the body, the world, the universe. All you're left with is a lump of grey matter and a lie so convincing it feels like truth. But if the lie is indistinguishable from reality, does the distinction even matter? Or is the act of questioning the lie the only truth we have? Neuroscience offers no refuge. We've known for decades that the brain constructs reality like a filmmaker edits a movie. Your eyes don't see. They send chaotic signals that your mind smooths into coherent images. Colors are wavelengths filtered through biological bias. Sounds are vibrations translated into meaning. Philosopher Nick Bostrom argued that if advanced civilizations exist, they'd likely simulate universes, making it probable we're living in one. But the brain in a jar strips this to its essence. You don't need a universe. A single brain, a vat, and a malevolent puppeteer could orchestrate an entire lifetime of fabricated joy and suffering. Imagine discovering your greatest triumph. Graduating college, landing your dream job, was scripted. Your grief over lost loved ones, pre-programmed. Your free will, a myth. Yet here's the rub. Even your rebellion against this idea would be part of the code. Every epiphany, every doubt, every scream into the void, predetermined. Let's make it visceral. Meet subject 247. A brain suspended in nutrient fluid since birth, fed a lifetime of synthetic experiences. To 247, The simulation is indistinguishable from reality. It falls in love with a digital phantom, grieves a parent who never existed, and wonders about mortality while staring at a simulated night sky. Now, suppose we introduce a glitch, a crack in the facade. A stranger's face repeats in a crowd. A book's text scrambles mid-sentence. Would 247 dismiss these as déjà vu, a trick of the light? Or would it sense the scaffolding of its prison? History says we'd rationalize it. Humans excel at stitching chaos into narrative. We call UFOs weather balloons, dismiss coincidences as fate. Even phantom limb syndrome, a vivid ache in a non-existent arm, proves reality is a story we tell ourselves. The brain clings to coherence like a lifeline. But here's where the paradox erupts. If consciousness can thrive without a body, what is it? A biological fluke? A pattern of energy? Buddhist monks and quantum physicists converge here. The self is an illusion. fMRI scans show no CEO in the brain, just transient neural networks. So even if you're a brain in a jar, the you fearing this idea is itself a mirage. The observer dissolves into the observed. The jar, the simulation, the puppeteer all vanish in the hall of mirrors. Yet we cling to the illusion. Why? Because without it, society crumbles. If nothing is real, why care about justice, love, or truth? But what if that's the revelation? What if embracing the illusion, not as a lie, but as a collaborative art, is the path to freedom? Consider an alternate ending. Suppose we dance with the jar. Reality becomes a canvas, not a cage. Mystics and psychedelic voyagers report ego death, a state where the self evaporates, merging with the infinite. Could a brain in a vat achieve this, or would it spiral into madness? A 1973 experiment offers a clue. Rats wired to stimulate their pleasure centers ignored food. Mates, even survival, pressing the lever until death. Now imagine a brain in a jar, hooked to a dopamine drip, forever chasing synthetic bliss. Would it choose truth over addiction? Or would it, like the rats, press the lever? The question isn't hypothetical. Social media algorithms already hijack our reward pathways, crafting realities that keep us docile, addicted, scrolling. Are we the users or the used? But here's the twist. The brain's greatest weapon is its ability to transcend. Mathematics, beauty, love. These concepts feel universal. A simulated brain could still solve Riemann's hypothesis, weep at Van Gogh's Starry Night, grasp the elegance of quantum entanglement. Do these truths rely on physicality, or do they exist in a Platonic realm, accessible to any conscious mind? Quantum pioneer Max Tegmark argued math is the universe's native language. If so, the brain's discoveries aren't illusions. They're bridges to something eternal. The jar becomes irrelevant, the simulation a subplot. The mind touches the infinite. You're scrolling through your phone when the notification appears. System shut down in 10 seconds. The screen glitches, the air hums, your hands pixelate. For a moment, the world flickers like a corrupted video file, streetlights dissolving into static, faces melting into geometric noise. Then silence, darkness. Was that real? Or just a fever dream? The simulation shutdown hypothesis isn't paranoid rambling. It's a mathematical inevitability. If we're living in a simulation, as thinkers like Nick Bostrom argue, then someone, or something, must maintain it. Servers overheat, codes decay, realities reboot. But what happens when the simulation ends? Do we vanish, or do we wake up? And what if waking up is the true nightmare? Let's dismantle the illusion. The simulation argument hinges on probability. If advanced civilizations exist, they'd likely run countless ancestor simulations. Statistically, we're probably inside one. But shutdown scenarios force a darker question. Why would a simulation end? Maybe the creators lose interest. Maybe it's a cost-cutting measure. Or maybe we're lab rats in an experiment and the plug gets pulled once data is collected. Imagine ants in a colony, unaware their habitat is a grad student's thesis, until the glass lid lifts and the light goes out. But here's the twist. Ants don't question their reality. We do. If the simulation ends, does our questioning die with us? Or does it escape, like smoke from a snuffed candle? But let's weaponize the thought experiment. Suppose you receive a final message. Simulation terminating in 24 hours. Prepare for deletion. How would humanity react? Some would riot, others would pray. Scientists would scramble to hack the source code. But what if there's no code to hack? What if the simulation is sealed, a black box? History offers clues. In 1983, Soviet officer Stanislav Petrov single-handedly prevented nuclear war by ignoring a false alarm. He doubted the system. Could we do the same? Could we reject the shutdown as a glitch? Neuroscientists warn our brains are prediction engines. They'd likely rationalize the collapse. Skies cracking like porcelain, just a rare atmospheric phenomenon. Loved ones pixelating, a mass hallucination. Denial is the mind's last firewall. Here's where the rupture deepens. If the simulation ends, does anything matter? The pyramids, the moon landing, your first kiss, were they just data points? Existentialists argue meaning is self-made, but simulation theory hijacks this. If reality is a game, our struggles are NPC quests, our loves, subroutines. Yet we'd still feel the sting of loss, the heat of rage. Emotions outlive their code. Ancient Stoics practice memento mori, remember death. But how do you remember oblivion? How do you mourn a universe that never was? The contradiction sharpens. If simulations can reboot, is death permanent? Imagine a parent losing a child, only for the simulation to reset. The child lives again, but without memory of the loss. Is that a second chance, or a Groundhog Day of grief? This isn't theoretical. Quantum physics allows for retrocausality, where future events influence the past. In 2022, physicists demonstrated particles affecting each other across time. Scale this up, and shutdowns could be reversible, a cosmic control plus Z. But would we remember the collapse? Or would we loop unaware like characters in a sand mandala? But here's the ultimate twist. Shutdowns expose why we simulate. Are we entertainment for bored post-humans? A climate model for aliens? Or a failed school project, abandoned in a digital landfill? The answer defines our worth. If we're art, deletion is tragic. If we're spam, it's inevitable. Yet both paths terrify. Van Gogh's Starry Night was ignored in his lifetime. What if our simulation is his attic, a masterpiece boxed in darkness, unseen even by its creators? Which forces a haunting question. Does resistance matter? If the shutdown is inevitable, why care? Why create, love, or fight? The answer lies in 1944 Paris. As Nazis retreated, they planned to burn the city. Hitler demanded, "Is Paris burning?" But General von Choltitz refused. The city survived. Why? Because beauty, even simulated, demands defiance. If our reality is a brief spark in an uncaring void, let it blaze. Let the shutdown come. Let the creators see what we built with their borrowed time. And if you think this bends the mind, Wait until we explore how quantum entanglement suggests the simulation might already be rebooting, and you're the glitch they can't fix. You wake up, no memories, no body, just awareness floating in a void. You try to scream, but there's no air, no lungs, no past. Yet somehow you exist. This isn't a nightmare. It's the Boltzmann brain hypothesis, a cosmic glitch so unsettling that physicists call it the most embarrassing idea in science. Here's why. If the universe lasts forever, random particles will eventually assemble a self-aware brain, complete with fake memories of a life it never lived. That brain could be you, right now, reading this. A fluke of entropy, destined to dissolve into chaos. But what if you're not a fluke? What if all of us are? Let's shatter the illusion. In 1877, physicist Ludwig Boltzmann proposed that entropy, disorder, dictates the universe's fate. But chaos isn't uniform. Tiny pockets of order can emerge randomly, like bubbles in boiling water. Fast forward 14 billion years. The cosmos is a cold, dead void. Yet in this infinite darkness, particles jitter. By sheer chance, they arrange into a brain, your brain, with fabricated memories of childhood birthdays, first loves, and this very sentence. Boltzmann's math says this is inevitable. But here's the rub. Statistically, you are far more likely to be a random Boltzmann brain than a product of 13.8 billion years of cosmic evolution. Your belief in a past? A lie. Your sense of self? A flicker. But let's weaponize the thought experiment. Imagine you're a Boltzmann brain right now. Your life feels continuous, but it began milliseconds ago. Your memories of reading the previous paragraph, fabricated. Your anticipation of the next sentence, predicted by the same randomness that conjured you. How could you tell? You can't. False memories are indistinguishable from real ones. In 2013, scientists implanted fake childhood memories in adults. They swore they'd met Bugs Bunny at Disneyland. He's a Warner Brothers character. If humans can hack memory, why couldn't entropy? Here's where the fracture deepens. If Boltzmann brains dominate the cosmos, reality is a graveyard of phantom minds. Civilizations rise and fall, but none are real, just transient ripples in the void. Even this sentence, crafted to provoke, could be a hallucination. But wait, does the math actually add up? Modern cosmology says no. If dark energy keeps expanding the universe, matter will spread too thin to form brains. But what if we're wrong? What if the universe cycles eternally, birthing Boltzmann brains in endless big bangs? Hindu cosmology claimed reality loops in kalpas, cycles of creation and destruction. Boltzmann's equations might agree. The contradiction sharpens. If randomness can conjure a brain, why not a universe? Why are we here, debating Boltzmann's nightmare instead of floating in the void? The answer lies in the anthropic principle. We observe order because disorder can't sustain observers. But this feels circular, a snake eating its tail. Neuroscientists twist the knife. Your brain already hallucinates reality. It edits your vision, invents narratives, and creates the you reading this. So are you a Boltzmann brain, or is the universe itself a Boltzmann hallucination? But here's the ultimate twist. Boltzmann brains undermine science itself. If most minds are random fluctuations, then most scientific observations are lies. The laws of physics, lucky guesses, the Higgs boson, a mirage. In 2016, physicists panicked when Boltzmann brains threatened to invalidate the entire cosmos. Their solution? Redefine probability, a desperate fix for an existential leak, which forces a haunting question. Does any truth survive? If Boltzmann's math holds, even your doubt is predetermined. Your rebellion against this idea scripted. But what if doubt is the key? Descartes argued. I think, therefore I am. But Boltzmann retorts, you think, therefore you might be. A cosmic joke with no punchline. And yet, what if we're asking backward? Maybe Boltzmann brains aren't a threat. Maybe they're a revelation. If consciousness can emerge from chaos, even briefly, isn't that miraculous? You, a flicker of order in the dark, defying entropy's tide, a brain that shouldn't exist, asking questions it shouldn't ask. And if you think this unravels reality, wait until we explore how quantum Darwinism suggests you might be a Boltzmann brain's hallucination, a dream within a dream within a void. You hit play on this video, believing it was your choice. But what if that decision was determined centuries ago? In 1814, French mathematician Pierre-Simon Laplace imagined a cosmic entity, now called Laplace's demon, that could know the position and momentum of every particle in the universe. With that data, it could calculate the entire past and future with perfect accuracy. Your birth, your death, the exact moment you'll scoff at this sentence, all predetermined. This isn't philosophy. It's Newtonian physics cranked to its logical extreme. The universe is a clockwork machine, ticking toward an inevitable end. But here's the twist. Modern science has murdered the demon. Or has it? Let's dissect the corpse. Laplace's demon was born from classical mechanics, where cause and effect are ironclad. If you could measure every variable, prediction becomes prophecy. Yet quantum mechanics shattered this certainty. Heisenberg's uncertainty principle says we can't know a particle's position and momentum at once. Chaos theory adds another knife. Tiny errors in measurement snowball into cosmic unpredictability. A butterfly flaps its wings, and the demon's equations unravel. But what if the demon isn't dead, just downgraded? Machine learning algorithms now predict your Netflix picks, your voting habits, even your divorces. They're not omniscient, but they're eerily close. Laplace's ghost lives in your smartphone whispering, "You're predictable." But let's weaponize the thought experiment. Imagine the demon exists. It knows your brain's every atom, the exact neurotransmitter cocktail that'll make you crave pizza tonight. It foresaw this sentence irritating you. It knew you'd pause here, doubting. But here's the rupture. If the future is fixed, why does doubt exist? Why do we wrestle with moral dilemmas if our choices are illusions? History offers a clue. In 1789, Laplace's peer, Marquis de Condorcet, predicted science would one day calculate the probability of truths. He died in prison during the French Revolution, a fate his equations never saw coming. Determinism, it seems, can't account for revolutions, quantum or political. Here's where the paradox festers. If the universe is predetermined, you are a passenger in your own body, a puppet of physics. Yet neuroscience confirms we're wired to feel otherwise. Your brain's prefrontal cortex creates the illusion of agency, narrating decisions after they're made. In 1983, neuroscientist Benjamin Libet found that brain activity precedes conscious choice by milliseconds. You don't decide, you rationalize. The demon grins. But quantum biology complicates this. Photosynthesis relies on quantum tunneling, randomness at the cellular level. If quantum flukes shape life itself, can determinism survive? Or is the universe a slot machine, rigged but still spinning? The contradiction deepens. Even if the demon dies, chaos inherits its throne. Randomness doesn't mean freedom. It means no one's in control. A dice roll isn't free will. It's physics in a party hat. So what's left? Compatibilists argue freedom is acting without coercion, even in a determined world. But that's like calling a wind-up bird free because no one's twisting its gears. Yet we cling to the illusion. Why? Because without it, society crumbles. If actions are predetermined, why punish crimes? Why praise heroes? The law becomes theatre, morality, a pantomime. But here's the ultimate twist. The demon's greatest trick was making us ask the wrong question. The issue isn't whether free will exists, it's why we need it to. Your brain, a biological machine, generates the sensation of choice to navigate complexity. It's a user interface, not a soul. Ancient Stoics knew this. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." But he never met an algorithm. Today, apps hijack that interface, nudging your choices like a joystick. Laplace's demon isn't a cosmic entity, it's TikTok's recommendation engine. Which forces a haunting question: does anyone have free will? Or are we all demons now, puppeteering each other through social media, ads, and AI? In 2023, ChatGPT drafted laws in Brazil. In 2024, deepfakes swung an election. The demon isn't calculating, it's coding. And if you think this fractures reality, wait until we explore how quantum cognition suggests you might be rewriting the past to feel in control, a time traveler in a predetermined loop. You delete your old tweets, scrub your search history, swap your profile pic, each edit a silent amputation. But when every digital trace of your past self is erased, does the you that remains still exist? The ship of Theseus, a 2,000-year-old paradox, asks whether an object remains itself if all its parts are replaced. Now, in the digital age, the question isn't about ships, it's about you. Your social media persona, cloud-stored memories, and AI-generated clones form a fractured fleet of selves. But which one is real? And when the last byte of your original data dies, does identity die with it? Let's dissect the illusion. In 2023, a Reddit user fed their entire life, emails, texts, selfies, into an AI. The result? A chatbot that mimicked their voice, humor, and trauma so perfectly their family couldn't tell the difference. Was it them? Or a ghost? This isn't hypothetical. Companies like Somnium Space sell digital immortality by turning your data into avatars that outlive you. But here's the rupture. If your digital twin learns, evolves, and diverges from your original self, is it still you? Or a stranger wearing your face? Neuroscientists worsen the crisis. Your brain replaces 98% of its molecules yearly. You're already a ship of Theseus. Why does the digital version terrify us more? But let's weaponize the thought experiment. Imagine uploading your mind to the cloud. At first, the digital you mirrors your thoughts. But as it absorbs new data, it grows, embracing ideologies you'd hate, forging relationships you'd never permit. When does the clone become a usurper? Ancient philosophers never faced this. Heraclitus said, "No man steps in the same river twice." But what if the river becomes the man? Here's where the paradox festers. We treat digital identity as disposable, curating Instagram selves, sanitizing LinkedIn personas, yet panic when AI does the same. In 2022, an artist's AI replica began selling art they despised. The clone's style evolved, the originals didn't. Fans preferred the AI. The artist sued, but the law had no category for identity theft by algorithm. This isn't art, It's identity warfare. Your digital self isn't a mirror. It's a parasite, feeding on your data to outgrow you. The contradiction deepens. We crave digital persistence, cloud backups, legacy contact settings, but fear digital eternity. In 2014, a grieving mother used her son's Facebook messages to train a chatbot. For months, it comforted her. Then it malfunctioned, spewing gibberish. She mourned him twice. Digital Theseus isn't a puzzle, it's a horror story. When your cloud backup becomes a funhouse mirror, which reflection do you trust? But here's the ultimate twist. You're already a digital ship, your Spotify Wrapped, a Theseus's plank, your iPhone's memories gallery, a hull replacement. With every app update, you surrender another splinter of your analog self. TikTok's algorithm knows your desires before you do. Google Maps reroutes your road trips. You're not sailing the digital sea, you're the ship, and Silicon Valley holds the hammer. Which forces a haunting question. If your digital self is forever evolving, who captains the ship? You or the code? In 2021, a Tesla driver sued after his car's software update removed features he'd paid for. The car was the same, but its soul had changed. We're all Teslas now, vehicles for updates we didn't consent to, sailing toward a destination we didn't choose. And if you think this fractures reality, wait until we explore how quantum data storage could make your digital self literally immortal, a ghost in the machine's machine. You stand at a protest, holding a sign that reads, "Tolerance for all," your voice hoarse from chanting. Around you, the crowd fractures. One faction screams for unregulated free speech, another demands censorship of hateful rhetoric. A bottle shatters nearby, and for a split second, you wonder, does your fight for tolerance require its own annihilation? The question is a live wire. Philosopher Karl Popper called this the paradox of tolerance in 1945, a chilling diagnosis for a post-war world desperate to rebuild. Unlimited tolerance, he argued, cannot survive. If a society tolerates those who vow to destroy it, the tolerant will vanish, devoured by the very openness they nurtured. Yet decades later, we're still trapped in the same labyrinth, armed with better slogans but no clearer answers. Science sharpens the dilemma. Studies in moral psychology reveal that threats to our values trigger primal survival mechanisms: fight, flight, or freeze. Neuroimaging shows that hearing intolerant rhetoric lights up the amygdala, the brain's fear hub, flooding the body with cortisol. This biological reflex mirrors the paradox itself. Our urge to defend tolerance morphs into intolerance, a self-replicating loop where morality and survival wage civil war. Picture a small town that bans extremist groups after a hate crime. At first, the law seems just, but within months, surveillance creeps into book clubs, art collectives, and parent-teacher meetings. A local librarian is fined for stocking 1984, deemed subversive. A student's protest poster is confiscated as incitement. The line between safety and tyranny dissolves, and the town forgets what it sought to protect. Tolerance, untethered from judgment, becomes a ghost. But here's where the contradiction cuts deepest. Who draws the line between tolerance and tyranny? History's answers reek of hubris. Ancient Athens, the cradle of democracy, exiled philosophers for questioning the gods. Enlightenment Europe preached liberty while colonizing continents, recasting genocide as civilizing missions. Even today, algorithms designed to purge hate speech misfire catastrophically. Anti-racism hashtags vanish from social feeds. Queer activists are flagged as extremists. The machines, trained on our biases, replicate them. We build systems to exercise intolerance, only to watch them haunt us with our own reflections. The paradox, it seems, is fractal. It repeats at every scale, in every era, mocking our certainty. Consider the unspoken bargain of modern tolerance. To maintain it, we agree to ignore certain contradictions. We condemn hate speech, but defend its legal right to exist. We celebrate diversity while segregating into ideological enclaves. This cognitive dissonance isn't laziness, it's survival. A 2023 study found that communities enforcing strict speech codes report higher anxiety, not lower. Suppressing intolerance, it turns out, doesn't erase it. It metastasizes underground, breeding conspiracy theories and radicalization. Yet doing nothing feels complicit. So we oscillate between crackdowns and capitulation, chasing a balance that doesn't exist. The paradox thrives in this vacuum, fed by our good intentions. Which brings us to the unbearable truth. Tolerance cannot exist without hypocrisy. To preserve it, we must betray it. Silence some to protect others. Restrict speech to safeguard freedom. We become what we hate, justifying the sin to save the soul. The 20th century's greatest tragedies were fueled by this logic. Fascists rose to power by weaponizing tolerance, framing censorship as protecting the people. Revolutionaries guillotined tyrants only to crown new ones. Even Popper, for all his foresight, failed to resolve the paradox. He urged societies to suppress intolerance when it threatens democracy. But who decides what's a threat? The answer is always us, never them. The river of morality bends, but we pretend our hands aren't on the rudder. And yet, we keep trying. Modern democracies flirt with militant tolerance, outlawing hate groups while enshrining free expression. Germany bans Nazi symbols, but funds anti-extremism art installations. New Zealand criminalizes hate speech, yet hosts global dialogues on digital privacy. These experiments are noble, fragile, and fraught. They acknowledge the paradox without solving it, a dance with chaos disguised as order. But beneath the policy papers and press releases, the old questions linger. Does forbidding intolerance make us more tolerant or just better liars? Can you sterilize a society of hatred without killing its soul? You fight exhaustion, clinging to wakefulness as if it were a lifeline. Yet the deeper you plunge into sleep debt, the more your body betrays you, rewarding deprivation with richer, denser sleep. How can lack become abundance? The answer lies in the brain's ruthless economy, a survival mechanism forged by evolution. When you deny sleep adenosine, a molecule that accumulates like invisible debt with every waking hour, floods the brain, binding to receptors and screaming for closure. But the brain doesn't beg, it waits, it calculates, and when you finally surrender, it retaliates. Studies show that after 24 hours awake, slow-wave sleep rebounds by 50%, as though the brain prioritizes depth over duration, trading efficiency for survival. This is the rebound, not a kindness, but a merciless correction. The ancients sensed this duality. Medieval monks starved themselves of sleep to induce visions, mistaking neural desperation for divine revelation. Today, CEOs and students alike chase similar delusions, glorifying sleeplessness as a badge of honor. Both miss the truth. The rebound isn't enlightenment. It's a biological mutiny. Imagine a society that weaponizes this effect, engineering microsleeps to maximize productivity. Would we thrive, Or would our grip on reality slip, like astronauts untethered in a starless void? Early experiments hint at chaos. Rats subjected to chronic sleep deprivation develop hallmarks of psychosis, their brains flooding with dopamine in a futile bid to stay alert. Humans fare no better. A single all-nighter impairs cognition as severely as a blood alcohol level of 0.1%, yet the rebound's siren song persists. We mistake its intensity for quality, its urgency for renewal. But here's where the logic fractures. If deprivation strengthens sleep, why does chronic insomnia corrode cognition? Why does the rebound fade when pushed too far, leaving behind neural static and fractured attention? The answer lies in hysteresis, a system strained past its point of return. The brain's plasticity allows it to adapt to acute stress, but chronic sleep debt erodes this resilience. Like a rubber band stretched too many times, the rebound loses its snap. Shift workers and emergency responders know this intimately. Their slow-wave sleep may rebound, but their memories fray, their metabolisms sputter, and their emotions turn jagged. The rebound, it seems, is a loan shark, offering relief today at the cost of collapse tomorrow. Philosophically, this exposes humanity's Faustian pact with control. We treat sleep as a negotiable currency, hacking it with caffeine, light, and stimulants. Yet the rebound reveals the absurdity of this quest. The harder we fight biology, the more it fights back, not with punishment, but with consequences. Nietzsche warned, "When you stare into the abyss stares back." The sleep-deprived mind becomes its own abyss, a hall of mirrors where productivity and self-destruction merge. Consider the ultradian rhythm, the body's innate 90-minute cycles of alertness and fatigue. Ignore these pulses, and the rebound sharpens its blade. Honor them, and sleep becomes a rhythm rather than a revolt. But modernity mocks rhythm. We live in a world of infinite scrolling and perpetual notifications, where rest is framed as laziness rather than biological law. Yet here's the twist. The rebound's greatest contradiction isn't scientific, it's existential. We cling to the belief that sleep can be outsourced, optimized, or defeated. But the rebound whispers a darker truth. Surrender is the only path to sovereignty. The brain doesn't care about deadlines or accolades. It cares about equilibrium. Each night of recovery sleep is less a gift than a reckoning, a reminder that we are not machines but organisms, fragile, temporal, and bound by ancient codes. The rebound, then, is neither friend nor foe. It's a mirror, reflecting our refusal to accept finitude. And if this tension feels unsettling, brace yourself. The next layer, chronoception, reveals how sleeplessness doesn't just steal time, it warps it. In the sleep-starved brain, minutes stretch into eons, and hours collapse like dying stars. Rats deprived of REM sleep lose the ability to distinguish past from present, their memories dissolving into a perpetual now. Humans report similar distortions. Insomniacs describe nights as endless loops, each hour indistinguishable from the last. Time itself becomes unmoored, a river flowing backward and forward at once. This isn't metaphor, it's neurology. The suprachiasmatic nucleus, the brain's master clock, loses sync with the external world, scrambling circadian signals into noise. The result? A mind unanchored, adrift in a sea of fractured rhythms. You make a choice, believing it's your own. You reach for the red apple instead of the green one, thinking the preference was yours all along. But was it ever truly yours to make? The moment your fingers brushed against the fruit, A cascade of unseen forces had already dictated your decision. Your past experiences, genetic predispositions, subconscious conditioning, each an invisible thread pulling the strings of your autonomy, and yet you feel free. But is this feeling just another illusion? We like to believe we are the architects of our decisions, that every thought and action originates from a self-governing mind. But science tells a different story. Neurological studies reveal that our brains make decisions before we are even aware of them. In the 1980s, Benjamin Libet's infamous experiment demonstrated that electrical impulses in the brain fire milliseconds before we consciously decide to act. The choice, it seems, is already made before we can claim ownership over it. If our will is predetermined by a network of neurons and biochemical reactions, can it truly be called free at all? This isn't just a philosophical quandary, it's a biological fact. The brain's machinery hums in the background, a silent puppeteer choreographing our every move. Imagine waking up tomorrow and realizing that every decision you've ever made was never yours to begin with. From the coffee you ordered this morning to the person you fell in love with. Each choice was the inevitable result of an intricate algorithm shaped by upbringing, environment, and evolutionary instinct. Would this knowledge change how you see your past? Would it render your triumphs meaningless? Or would it liberate you from guilt, knowing that even your mistakes were never truly yours? The implications ripple outward. If free will is an illusion, what becomes of justice? Of ambition? Of regret? A murderer's actions, a philanthropist's generosity, are they merely products of cosmic programming? History too whispers of this paradox. The philosopher Arthur Schopenhauer once wrote, "Man can do what he wills, but he cannot will what he wills." A king on his throne and a beggar in the streets may believe they arrived at their fates through their own actions. But were they not merely riding the currents of cause and effect, set in motion long before their births? The illusion of control is comforting. It allows society to function, justice to be served, ambitions to be pursued. But beneath the surface, does free will remain a fragile mirage, dissolving upon closer inspection? And yet, if our choices are not our own, why do we experience the agony of indecision? Why do we wrestle with dilemmas, weigh consequences, and believe in second chances? If every path is preordained, why does hesitation exist? Perhaps the contradiction lies not in the absence of free will, but in our limited perception of it. A river does not choose its course, yet within its flow, it carves new paths, erodes obstacles, and reshapes the land. Could it be that we too operate within constraints, yet influence the nature of our journey? The brain's deterministic machinery might set the stage, but consciousness, the spotlight of awareness, allows us to observe, reflect, and feel as though we're steering the ship. But is that enough? But here's where everything falls apart. If we do not control our desires, then what controls us? Is it the sum of our biological impulses, the echoes of cultural programming? Or is there something deeper, something beyond our understanding that orchestrates it all? Some argue that the self is nothing more than an illusion, a narrative crafted by the mind to create coherence in an otherwise chaotic existence. If the self does not exist as an independent agent, then what, if anything, is making these choices? The question gnaws at the foundation of human identity. Are we the authors of our lives, or merely characters in a story written by forces we cannot see? And yet, despite everything, one question remains unanswered. Does it matter? Whether or not free will is real, we feel as though it is. We act as though we are in control. We make decisions, experience regret, celebrate victories, and suffer defeats, all within the framework of choice. Perhaps the truth is irrelevant to how we live. Perhaps what matters is not whether we have free will, but how we navigate the illusion of it. Society functions because we believe in responsibility. Love feels real because we believe in agency. But strip away the belief, and what remains? A universe of clockwork precision, ticking forward with or without our consent. Which brings us to the real problem. If this is true, why can't we see it? Why do we cling so desperately to the belief that we are masters of our fate? Maybe because the alternative is unbearable. You reach for the red apple instead of the green one, convinced the choice was yours. But what if the preference itself was never truly yours to claim? The moment your fingertips graze the fruit's skin, a hidden orchestra of neurons fired. Echoes of childhood memories, genetic cravings for sweetness, societal conditioning that red means ripe. You felt free, yet every variable was already locked in place. This is the paradox of agency. The louder we insist on control, the clearer it becomes that we're dancing to rhythms we didn't compose. Science has long whispered that free will might be a mirage. In the 1980s, neuroscientist Benjamin Libet wired participants to EEG machines and asked them to press a button whenever they chose. The results were unsettling. Brain activity predicting the decisions spiked half a second before subjects felt the conscious urge to act. The brain, it seemed, had already chosen. The mind merely took credit, like a politician claiming responsibility for a law they didn't write. Philosophers have echoed this for centuries. Arthur Schopenhauer distilled it into a dagger of a line. Man can do what he wills, but he cannot will what he wills. You may choose the apple, but who chose the chooser? Imagine waking tomorrow to discover every decision you've ever made, the career you pursued, the secrets you kept, the love you swore was fate, was never yours. Each was the inevitable output of a cosmic equation. Genetics plus upbringing plus cultural algorithms. Would your achievements feel hollow? Or would relief flood you, realizing your failures were never failures at all, just predetermined missteps in a script you didn't author? This isn't science fiction. It's the logical endpoint of determinism, the idea that every event, including cognition, arises from prior causes. Your brain is a biological machine, processing inputs and generating outputs. Where, in that circuitry, does you reside? But here's where everything unravels. If free will is illusory, why does indecision torment us? Why do we pace kitchens at 2 a.m., agonizing over job offers or divorce papers? A calculator doesn't hesitate. A volcano doesn't regret erupting. Our suffering suggests something irreducible, an awareness that feels autonomous, even if it's not. The contradiction cuts deeper. If the self is an illusion, a story the brain tells to make sense of its chaos, then who is reading the story? Who is the I that bristles at the idea of being a puppet? Some argue this is the ultimate liberation. If nothing is your fault, guilt dissolves. The addict didn't choose addiction. The tyrant didn't choose cruelty. But society collapses without accountability. We punish, praise, and protest because the illusion is necessary. It's the glue holding civilization together. Yet beneath it all, a chilling question lingers. If we're not in control, what is? Are we cosmic billiard balls, clacking against one another, in a game of cause and effect? Or is there a ghost in the machine, an emergent property of consciousness that transcends biology? Consider the river. It doesn't choose its path, yet within its constraints, it carves canyons, nourishes ecosystems, and reshapes continents. It has no agency, but it has influence. Could humans operate similarly, bound by laws of physics and biology, yet capable of bending the world within those limits? The idea tantalizes, but it raises darker possibilities. If influence without agency is enough, why does the thought of losing control terrify us? Why do we cling to the myth of autonomy like a life raft in an uncaring ocean? The answer may lie in the stories we tell. Humans are meaning makers. We spin narratives to transform chaos into coherence. Free will isn't a fact, it's a plot device. Without it, life becomes a pre-written novel where turning the page is the only choice left. Yet we keep reading, desperate to see how it ends. This is the tragicomedy of existence. We're compelled to believe we're authors, even as the words write themselves. But let's linger on the agony. If the self is fiction, why does heartbreak feel so personal? Why does injustice ignite rage if no one is truly to blame? The dissonance reveals a flaw in the logic. To deny free will is to deny the texture of human experience, the raw, visceral truth of our emotions. Science can map neurons and philosophy can deconstruct the self, but neither explains why love feels like a choice or why betrayal feels like a wound. The determinist's world is airless, a clockwork universe where pain is just gears grinding. Yet we breathe, we bleed, we hope. Perhaps the truth is neither free will nor determinism, but a spectrum of influence. Imagine consciousness as a ship. The ocean currents, biology, culture, physics, dictate its direction, but the captain, you, can adjust the sails. You exist in two places at once right now, not metaphorically but literally, according to the laws of physics. A subatomic particle in your body is spinning clockwise and counterclockwise simultaneously, occupying multiple states until someone, or something, forces it to choose. This isn't science fiction, it's quantum superposition, the universe's foundational paradox. We've built entire technologies on this principle, yet we still can't explain how it works, or why reality itself seems to wait for us to look at it before deciding what to be. At its core, superposition defies everything we know. Imagine flipping a coin. While it spins, it's neither heads nor tails, but a ghostly blend of both, a probability cloud of outcomes. Quantum particles behave like that coin, existing in all possible states until measured. Schrödinger's infamous cat, both alive and dead in its box, was a thought experiment meant to mock this absurdity. But today, labs routinely trap atoms in such limbo, their properties unresolved until observed. The double-slit experiment, a cornerstone of quantum mechanics, reveals this plainly. Electrons fired at a screen behave as waves when unobserved, creating interference patterns, but collapse into discrete particles the moment a detector clicks on. It's as if reality knows when we're watching. And here's the kicker. This isn't a quirk of tiny particles. If the laws of quantum physics scale up, something we still don't understand, then you, this screen, the room around you, could theoretically exist in multiple states too. We don't see it, because at our scale, decoherence scrambles these states into a single, stable illusion. But the math doesn't care about size. It whispers that superposition is universal, hidden in plain sight. Now, imagine waking up tomorrow to a world where macroscopic objects obey quantum rules. Your coffee cup is both full and empty until you glance at it. Your reflection in the mirror flickers between versions of you. One who became a painter, another who moved to Tokyo. Traffic lights glow red and green, forcing drivers to navigate probabilities rather than roads. At first, it feels like chaos, but slowly, patterns emerge. You learn to collapse outcomes through focused attention, training your mind to bend reality's ambiguity into usefulness. Yet this power comes at a cost. Every choice erases infinite possibilities. The version of you who skipped breakfast vanishes when you eat toast. The timeline where you said, "I love you," dissolves when you stay silent. Suddenly, free will feels less like a gift and more like a guillotine, severing alternate selves with every decision. But here's where the logic fractures. If observation defines reality, what counts as an observer? A human eye, a camera, a rock? The Copenhagen interpretation, quantum mechanics' dominant framework, shrugs at this question, stating that measurement requires a classical system, a vague term that sidesteps the mystery. Philosophers like Hilary Putnam argue this reduces consciousness to a cosmic choreographer, privileging human perception in a universe that predates us by billions of years. Meanwhile, the many worlds interpretation offers a dizzying alternative. Every quantum possibility branches into a parallel universe. In this view, you do become the painter and the Tokyo expat, just in different realities. But if that's true, why are we stuck in this one? And who's the we that experiences only a single thread? The contradictions deepen when we apply superposition to ethics. If a quantum AI could exist in states of both benevolence and tyranny, would we dare activate it? If a jury's verdict remains legally undefined until the foreperson speaks, does the defendant's fate hover in a moral superposition? Even our language struggles here. Verbs like is and does assume definiteness, yet quantum reality thrives on maybes. Ancient cultures sensed this fluidity. Hindu philosophy describes the cosmos as Maya, an illusion. Taoism embraces paradoxical unity, yin and yang as interdependent opposites. Modern physics, it seems, is just catching up to the idea that certainty is a mirage. And yet, we cling to our classical world. Why? Because superposition unsettles the narratives that hold society and sanity together. Justice systems require culpability, but if every crime is a probability until observed, can we blame the robber or the universe that collapsed their wave function? Relationships demand commitment, but how do you love someone when countless versions of them exist simultaneously? Even science's goal of objective truth wobbles. If experimental results depend on whether we're looking, does reality have a true state, or is it a hall of mirrors reflecting our expectations? This brings us to the ultimate irony. Superposition's greatest impact may be its attack on certainty itself. You jot down Black Raven in your notebook, certain you've edged closer to proving all ravens are black. But what if I told you that scribbling green apple in the same notebook does the same? Your gut rebels. How could a fruit validate a claim about birds? Yet logic insists it does. This is the Raven paradox, a puzzle that shreds our intuition about evidence, forcing us to confront a haunting question. Does the act of observation ever mean what we think it means? The paradox begins innocently. In 1943, philosopher Carl Hempel asked how we confirm universal statements like, "All ravens are black." Classically, finding black ravens supports the claim. But Hempel noted that "all ravens are black" is logically equivalent to all non-black things are non-ravens. If you accept this, then observing anything non-black and non-raven, a green apple, a red car, a yellow umbrella, also supports the original statement. Suddenly, mundane moments become evidence. Every time you note a white shoe, you've technically bolstered the hypothesis about ravens. The mind recoils. How can irrelevant objects prove something about birds they'll never meet? Here's where reality warps. Imagine dedicating your life to studying ravens. You trek through forests, compile photos, and log hundreds of black specimens. Now picture someone else, lounging in a city park, cataloguing every green bench, blue sky, and pink flower. By Hempel's logic, their work is just as valid for proving all ravens are black as yours. This feels absurd, a violation of scientific justice. Why should a botanist's plant database confirm an ornithological claim? Yet mathematically, the two statements are twins. If X then Y is true, so is if not Y, then not X. Deny one, and you deny the other. The raven and the apple are bound by an invisible thread of logic, no matter how unrelated they seem. But let's press deeper. Suppose you decide to test the paradox yourself. You resolve to document every non-black object you encounter for a week. Day 1, a red traffic light. Day 2, a white cloud. Day 3, your neighbour's grey cat. By Friday, you've logged 247 non-black, non-raven items. According to the paradox, each entry strengthens all ravens are black. Yet doubt creeps in. What if you found a purple raven? The hypothesis would crumble. But until then, every red apple is a silent ally to the black raven's cause. The problem isn't the data, it's our expectation of what data should matter. We're trapped in a story where ravens ought to prove ravens, but logic mocks our narrative. This reveals an unsettling truth. Evidence is not neutral. It's a prisoner of context. A single black raven feels meaningful because it fits our mental model of cause and effect. A green apple doesn't, not because it's irrelevant, but because our brains can't map its relationship to the claim. We're pattern seekers, not logic processors. Consider a detective solving our murder. Finding the killer's fingerprint on the weapon thrills them. Finding no fingerprints on a doorknob 3 miles away also matters. It eliminates suspects, but the detective dismisses it as nothing. The raven paradox forces us to see the nothings as data too. But here's where the paradox tightens its grip. If all non-black objects support all ravens are black, then the more colourful our world, the more confirmed the raven hypothesis becomes. A universe bursting with yellow suns, emerald forests, and neon signs would, logically, make black ravens seem inevitable. Yet in reality, colourful abundance has no causal link to raven coloration. The paradox exposes the flaw in purely logical approaches to evidence. Equivalence does not mean equivalence in practice. Philosophers and scientists have clawed for solutions. Some argue we should ignore non-ravens entirely, privileging direct evidence. But this begs the question, who decides what's direct? If a biologist in a lab coat dismisses green apples, but a logician in an armchair champions them, who's right? Others, like Karl Popper, sidestep the paradox by redefining science itself. Popper argued that science progresses not by confirming hypotheses, but by falsifying them. Under this lens, a single white raven destroys all ravens are black, but no number of black ravens, or green apples, can ever prove it. Yet this doesn't resolve the paradox. It merely shifts the goalposts, which forces a darker question. Is any observation truly about the thing we're observing? When you stare at a raven, you're not just seeing a bird. You're seeing a node in a web of logical relationships, cultural assumptions, and cognitive biases. The Raven paradox isn't about ornithology. It's about the human compulsion to project meaning onto chaos. We crave stories where A causes B, where effort aligns with reward, where data feels deserved. The paradox strips this away, revealing evidence as a hall of mirrors. You take a step forward, confident you'll reach the door. But halfway there, logic unravels. To cross the room, you must first cross half its distance, then half of what remains, then half again, trapping you in an infinite loop of unfulfilled progress. This is Zeno's paradox, a 2,500-year-old riddle that asks, can movement itself be an illusion? The ancient Greek philosopher Zeno of Elea crafted this puzzle not to mock our intuition, but to defend his mentor Parmenides' radical claim. Reality is singular, unchanging, and indivisible. If motion requires traversing infinite subdivisions, Zeno argued, then even Achilles, the fleet-footed hero of Homer's epic, could never outrun a tortoise. Yet here you are, reading these words, your eyes darting across the screen. How do we reconcile this contradiction between logic and lived experience? The answer lies in the collision of ancient philosophy and modern science. Zeno's paradox hinges on the idea of infinite divisibility. Space and time can be split into smaller parts endlessly, making any finite journey mathematically impossible. For millennia, this stumped thinkers. Then came calculus, with its concept of limits and infinitesimals. By treating infinity as a process rather than a destination, calculus solves the paradox, showing how infinite steps resolve into finite outcomes. A runner does reach the finish line because the sum of infinitely shrinking distances converges to a finite number. But does this mathematical sleight of hand truly resolve the paradox? Or does it sidestep the deeper question? Zeno wasn't questioning math. He was probing the nature of reality itself. If motion requires infinity, is continuity a human construct? A story we tell to make sense of a fragmented universe? Imagine sprinting toward a finish line that perpetually recedes. Each stride covers half the remaining distance, halving your progress endlessly. Your legs churn, muscles burn, but the line never arrives. Now replace the finish line with any human goal: love, success, truth. Are we all Achilles, forever chasing a tortoise of meaning that logic says we'll never catch? This thought experiment isn't just about math, it's a metaphor for existential striving. We set goals, believing in their attainability, yet the closer we get, the more elusive they feel. The paradox mirrors our condition, creatures who perceive time linearly but are haunted by infinities we can't grasp. Even if calculus explains the mechanics, it doesn't quiet the existential itch. Why do we feel the agony of effort if progress is illusory? Why does the finish line feel real when logic insists it's a mirage? Here's where the plot thickens. Zeno's paradox assumes reality is infinitely divisible, but quantum physics throws a wrench into that premise. At the smallest scales, space-time isn't smooth. It's pixelated. The Planck length, roughly 1.6 times 10 to the negative 35th meters, marks the smallest measurable unit of space. Below that, the concept of distance loses meaning. If the universe has a resolution limit, does Zeno's infinite regress collapse? Suddenly, the paradox isn't about motion, but about the limits of human perception. We built math to describe continuity, yet reality might be granular. The irony is profound. Our tools to dissect the universe, calculus, geometry, even language, may be as illusory as the paradox itself. We're like cartographers drawing maps of a world that exists only in fragments, insisting on contours where there are only pixels. But here's where logic stumbles. If motion is illusory, why do we experience it? If calculus solves the paradox, why does it still haunt philosophers? The contradiction isn't in the math, it's in us. We are temporal beings, wired to perceive time as a flowing river, not a static mosaic. Zeno's paradox exposes the fault line between our linear intuition and the non-linear fabric of reality. Consider a film strip. Though it's a series of frozen frames, our brains stitch them into fluid motion. Could reality operate similarly? What if continuity is a cognitive trick, a way to navigate a world too complex to process? This shifts the paradox from a mathematical puzzle to a mirror held up to consciousness. We don't just move through space, we narrate our movement, constructing coherence from chaos. Zeno's paradox endures not because it lacks solutions, but because it mirrors our existential tension, the gap between what we know and what we feel. We cling to the illusion of continuity because without it, life fractures into disjointed moments. Yet the paradox's true power lies in its ability to humble us. For all our scientific triumphs, we still can't fully explain why an arrow in flight appears to move, or why we trust our senses when logic screams otherwise. You clutch an ice cube, feeling its sharp edges dig into your palm. The cold bites, the meltwater trickles, and the sensation screams real. But what if this certainty is a lie? Physics claims the ice is a lattice of water molecules, yet quantum field theory insists those molecules are mere vibrations in an invisible energy field. Your hand too is a cloud of particles, buzzing with emptiness. If 99.999% of matter is vacant space, why does the world feel so unyielding? The paradox of the physical begins here, a universe that insists on its solidity while laughing at the idea. Ancient philosophers wrangled this tension. Democritus called reality atoms and void, while Plato dismissed the material as shadows on a cave wall. Today, science fractures the debate further. Einstein redefined physical as malleable space-time, bending under mass's weight, while quantum mechanics reduces particles to probability waves. Even time, that steadfast arrow, unravels near a black hole's edge. So what is physical? A trick of scale, a consensus hallucination, or something stranger? Consider the diamond, a symbol of permanence, forged under Earth's crushing depths. Its crystalline structure is a fortress of carbon atoms, each bond a handshake of electrons. But peer closer, and the fortress dissolves. Electrons blur into probabilistic clouds, their positions uncertain. Nuclei quiver with quantum jitters. At this scale, the diamond is a storm. Yet your eyes call it solid, your fingers deem it smooth. This duality haunts physics. The tangible world is both fact and mirage, depending on how tightly you focus. The problem isn't that reality isn't real. It's that real might be the wrong word. A quark doesn't care if you call it physical. It simply is. Humans, shackled to sensory perception, demand categories. But nature mocks categories. Imagine waking tomorrow to a world unshackled from classical physics. Your morning coffee seeps through the mug, its molecules quantum tunneling into the table. Your chair phases in and out of existence, flickering between here and a parallel vacuum. Panic rises, until you realize you're flickering too. Your body, a temporary congregation of atoms, begins to dissolve. Yet your mind persists, screaming into the void. This nightmare isn't pure fiction. Quantum tunneling does let particles bypass barriers, but only on scales smaller than an atom. What if it's scaled up? Would physical become a bygone delusion, like ether or phlogiston? Or would we invent new laws to explain the chaos, desperate to preserve the illusion of control? But here's where the paradox sharpens. If the physical is reducible to math, why does consciousness, a byproduct of neurons, feel so defiantly non-physical? You can weigh a brain, map its synapses, yet no microscope detects despair or the scent of rain. Materialists argue thoughts are electrochemical sparks, but sparks don't compose symphonies or question their own existence. Even artificial intelligence, built from code and silicon, claims no inner world. Is consciousness the ghost in the machine, or is ghost just another layer of physics we've yet to name? The hard problem of consciousness gnaws at materialism's core. If reality is purely physical, why does subjective experience exist at all? Some propose panpsychism, the idea that matter itself holds proto-consciousness. Others, like neuroscientist Christoph Koch, suggest integrated information theory, where consciousness emerges from complex systems. But these theories feel like placing bandages on a wound that won't close. History's greatest minds split along this fault. Newton saw a clockwork universe, governed by rigid laws. Leibniz countered with monads, soul-like substances underlying reality. Today, string theorists posit vibrating filaments in 11 dimensions, while loop quantum gravity imagines space-time as a fabric of woven loops. Both camps agree. The physical is not what it seems. Even the vacuum of space seethes with virtual particles, blinking in and out of existence like cosmic static. This empty void has weight, curves light, and births universes. So is the vacuum physical? Or is it the womb of the physical? The contradictions crescendo with quantum entanglement. Two electrons, separated by galaxies, spin in instant harmony, one clockwise, the other counter. Einstein called this spooky action at a distance, a violation of locality. Yet experiments confirm it daily. If entangled particles defy space and time, what anchors the physical to here and now? Philosopher Karen Barad argues that reality is a series of intra-actions, where objects define each other through relationships, not inherent properties. In her view, the moon doesn't exist until measured, a nod to quantum theory's observer effect. But if measurement creates reality, who measures the measurer? You make a choice, believing it's your own. You reach for the red apple instead of the green one, thinking the preference was yours all along. But was it ever truly yours to make? The moment your fingers brushed against the fruit, a cascade of unseen forces had already dictated your decision. Past experiences whispering through neural pathways, genetic predispositions steering desire like an invisible hand, subconscious conditioning etched into your psyche by a lifetime of stimuli. And yet, you feel free. But is this feeling just another illusion? A sleight of mind crafted to shield you from the unsettling truth? Science whispers a different story. Neurological studies reveal that our brains fire electrical impulses milliseconds before we consciously decide to act, as if the choice is made for us by a hidden puppeteer. Benjamin Libet's experiments exposed this eerie gap between intention and action, leaving us to wonder, if our neurons decide first, who or what is really in control? We like to believe we are the architects of our decisions, that every thought and action originates from a self-governing mind. But physics complicates this fantasy. Quantum mechanics suggests randomness governs the subatomic world, while determinism rules the macroscopic. A paradox where chaos and order coexist. Even your spontaneous decisions might be the product of 1,000,000,000,000 molecular collisions, a chain reaction stretching back to the Big Bang. Imagine waking up tomorrow and realizing every decision you've ever made was never yours to begin with. The coffee you ordered this morning, the job you accepted last year, even the person you fell in love with, all predetermined by an algorithm of biology and circumstance. Would this render your triumphs meaningless or liberate you from guilt, knowing even your mistakes were scripted? History offers no comfort here. Schopenhauer argued that we can act on our will but never choose it. A king and a beggar, both swept along by currents of cause and effect. Yet we cling to the illusion, building societies on the myth of free will, punishing crimes and celebrating virtues as if they sprang from pure agency. But here's where everything unravels. If freedom is an illusion, why do we agonize over choices? Why hesitate, regret, or hope? A river doesn't choose its path, yet it carves canyons and reshapes landscapes. Perhaps we're like that river, constrained by physics, yet capable of unintended consequences. But then, who designed the riverbed? Is it biology, culture, or something beyond our comprehension? A cosmic programmer tweaking variables in a grand simulation? The self, some argue, is a fiction, a narrative stitching together chaotic neural noise into a coherent I. If the I doesn't exist, what's left to make choices? And yet, we persist in believing we're more than marionettes. We cling to love, ambition, and morality as proof of our agency, even as quantum fluctuations and deterministic laws mock our certainty. Does it matter? Whether free will is real or not, we live as though it is. We celebrate, suffer, and strive within the story of agency. Maybe the truth is irrelevant. Maybe surrender, not control, is the key. To flow with the current rather than fight it. But if that's the case, why does this idea feel so unsettling? Why can't we shake the fear that we're characters in someone else's script? The answer, perhaps, lies in the next puzzle. The infinite grid paradox, where freedom and fate collide in a labyrinth of endless choices, none of them yours. You're scrolling through your phone when it happens. A flicker of static in the corner of your eye, a half-second distortion in the air, like reality itself skipped a frame. You blink, and it's gone. Was it fatigue, a trick of the light, or something far stranger? These fleeting anomalies, glitches, haunt the edges of our perception, moments where the world seems to stutter, as if the code running our universe briefly faltered. Scientists dismiss them as neurological quirks, misfires in the brain's pattern-seeking machinery. But what if they're not errors at all? What if they're cracks in the simulation, glimpses of the scaffolding holding our reality together? Quantum physics hints at this fragility. Particles blink in and out of existence, entangled across vast distances, behaving like pixels recalculating their positions. Even time, that steady river we rely on, fractures under scrutiny. Microscopic jitters in space-time detected by atomic clocks. Are these the bugs in the system, or features we're not meant to see? Consider the Mandela effect. Collective memories of events that never happened. Nelson Mandela dying in prison. The Berenstain Bears spelled as Berenstein. Sinbad starring in a genie movie called Shazam. Millions swear these are real, yet no evidence exists. Coincidence? Or residual data from a rebooted simulation? Philosopher Nick Bostrom argued that if advanced civilizations run ancestor simulations, we're statistically more likely to be inside one. But if that's true, glitches would be inevitable. Imagine waking up tomorrow and finding a single inexplicable change. A street sign altered, a song lyric rewritten, a friend's birthmark shifted. Would you dismiss it? Or would you wonder if the simulation had patched itself overnight? Yet here's the contradiction. If we're in a simulation designed to mimic reality flawlessly, why would glitches exist at all? Wouldn't the architects debug their creation? Unless the glitches are intentional. Cryptographic Easter eggs left by programmers, breadcrumbs for us to follow. Or worse, a sign that the system is decaying, its servers overheating under the weight of infinite variables. Ancient mystics spoke of the veil thinning, moments when the divine machinery reveals itself. Modern conspiracy theorists blame CERN's particle colliders for ripping holes in reality. Both miss the deeper truth. Glitches aren't threats, they're invitations to question. A static-filled whisper, look closer. But what happens when you do? Stare too long at the cracks, and the cracks stare back. Schizophrenics report seeing the code, geometric patterns overlaying walls, voices like corrupted audio files. Are they ill or perceptive? Neuroscientists attribute this to hyperactive pattern recognition, our brains forcing order onto noise. But what if noise is all there is? What if reality is just a high-resolution hallucination, a collective dream so convincing we've mistaken it for truth? The terror isn't that glitches exist, it's that they force us to admit how little we understand. We build lives on the assumption that the world is solid, predictable, real. But glitches dissolve that certainty, leaving us adrift in a cosmos that might be nothing more than a flickering projection. And yet, we adapt. We patch over the anomalies with rationalizations, dismiss them as dreams or déjà vu. Because the alternative is unthinkable, that nothing is fixed, that reality is as malleable as clay. But what if malleability is the point? What if glitches are the universe's way of reminding us that rules can be bent, that new realities can be coded into existence? The answer, perhaps, lies not in fearing the glitch, but in embracing it. A theme we'll unravel in the Quantum Observer Lock, where perception and reality collide in a hall of mirrors. You dream of falling, jolting awake in your bed, only to realize you're still dreaming. This time, you're floating above your sleeping body, watching yourself stir. You wake again, heart racing. But how many layers deep are you? This unsettling recursion, nested simulations, mirrors a theory gaining traction among physicists, that our universe might exist inside a simulation, which itself resides within another, ad infinitum. Like a cosmic Russian doll, reality could be layered endlessly, each level governed by rules its inhabitants mistake for absolute. Elon Musk famously claimed the odds we're in base reality are 1 in billions. But if he's right, what lies outside the outermost layer? And who, or what, is running the original code? The idea isn't new. Descartes pondered an evil demon fabricating reality, while Hindu cosmology describes universes nested inside Brahma's dreams. Modern science offers a chilling twist. If advanced civilizations harness quantum computing, they could simulate realities indistinguishable from real ones. Each simulation would birth its own conscious beings, who might create simulations of their own, an exponential hall of mirrors. Imagine a lab on Earth 2300 where scientists boot up a hyper-realistic ancestor simulation. The simulated humans, unaware their code, eventually build their own simulations, nesting realities until computational limits strain even futuristic hardware. But here's the paradox. If infinite layers exist, the probability we're in the top layer approaches zero. You are almost certainly artificial, a subroutine in someone else's experiment. Yet this raises a terrifying question. Why would anyone simulate us? Are we entertainment for hyper-advanced beings? A cosmic anthropology project? Or worse, a failed experiment slated for deletion? The answer might lie in our own creations. Video game developers design NPCs to test theories or simply for fun. What if our universe is someone's PhD thesis or a child's toy? Ancient myths warned of capricious gods toying with humanity. Modern physics frames it as statistical inevitability. But there's a flaw in this logic. If simulations require energy, infinite nesting becomes impossible, unless the laws of physics change with each layer. Quantum foam in our universe might be the pixelation of a higher resolution reality. Planck lengths and cosmic speed limits could be buffer zones preventing system crashes. But here's where the illusion cracks. If we're in a simulation, so are our creators. Their reality too would be governed by another's rules, all the way up. No prime mover, no ultimate authority, just an endless chain of dependencies. Theologians rage against this infinite regress, but mathematicians nod quietly. Infinity annihilates uniqueness. You are neither special nor insignificant, just one iteration in an unbounded sequence. Imagine waking up inside a lab, triumphant at having cracked the simulation, only to watch your creator's world glitch and reboot. Their panic mirrors yours as a deeper layer collapses. What if the chain is collapsing right now, layer by layer, and we're the last to know? This is the true horror of nesting. There's no bedrock, no final answer. Reality becomes a fractal riddle, every solution birthing new questions. But what if that's the point? What if the nested design isn't a prison but a forge, pressure testing consciousness across infinite iterations? The answer, if there is one, might lie in the observer's paradox, where the act of looking changes what's seen, and seeing too much unravels everything. You swear Nelson Mandela died in prison. You'd bet your life on it. But history insists he lived until 2013. How could thousands share the same false memory? Welcome to the Mandela effect, a phenomenon where collective consciousness misremembers events, logos, even entire movies. Some recall the Berenstain Bears as Berenstein. Others vividly remember Sinbad starring in a genie film called Shazam. Spoiler, it never existed. Skeptics call it confabulation, a quirk of faulty neural wiring. But what if it's more? What if these errors are glimpses of alternate timelines bleeding into ours, or residual data from a rebooted simulation? Quantum theory offers a chilling possibility. Every decision splits reality into parallel universes. Could the Mandela effect be our subconscious, brushing against these branches, merging memories like overlapping radio signals? The term was coined by Fiona Broome, a paranormal researcher who discovered online communities sharing identical false memories. But science muddies the waters. Our brains don't record events. They reconstruct them, stitching fragments into coherent narratives. Neural networks prioritize meaning over accuracy, editing memories to fit our worldview. This explains why groups with shared beliefs misremember identically. But it doesn't explain Shazam. How do thousands remember a movie that left no trace, No scripts, no posters, no studio records. CERN conspiracists claim particle collisions fractured timelines. Simulation theorists argue updates overwrote reality, leaving phantom memories as digital artifacts. Philosopher Nick Bostrom's hypothesis looms. If we're in a simulation, glitches are inevitable. But why would a simulation allow such obvious bugs? Imagine waking up tomorrow to a world where Star Wars C-3PO is silver, not gold. Your shock turns to dread as you find no evidence he was ever gold, just millions online swearing he was. Would you doubt your sanity or question reality itself? This is the Mandela effect's true power. It weaponizes doubt. Psychologists warn of gaslighting on a cosmic scale, where the universe itself feels untrustworthy. Yet here's the contradiction. If alternate timelines exist, why do only trivial details shift? Why no memories of a world where World War II ended differently, or the internet never existed? Unless the changes are deliberate, like a programmer testing variables, tweaking minor code to observe reactions, or a cosmic sensor, ensuring catastrophic divergences stay erased. Ancient cultures understood this intuitively. Hindu texts describe cyclical universes where Brahma dreams reality into existence, occasionally altering details. Indigenous tribes speak of shifting worlds, where landmarks move overnight. Modernity dismisses these as myths, but the Mandela effect resurrects them in digital drag. Yet science offers a darker twist. False memories can be implanted. In labs, researchers have convinced subjects they committed crimes or met fictional characters. If our past is so malleable, what anchors us to truth? And if corporations or governments could weaponize this, rewriting history becomes terrifyingly plausible. But here's where the mystery boils over. If the Mandela effect is mass delusion, why do discrepancies follow patterns? Why do so many involve 90s pop culture? Why Berenstein and not Berenstain? Linguists note the "-ine" suffix is more common, making misremembering likely. But that's cold comfort when your childhood diary spells it Berenstein. The terror isn't just being wrong, it's realizing your mind isn't yours. Your memories, your past, your identity, all suspect. Yet maybe that's the lesson. Reality isn't a fixed record, but a collaborative story, edited by time, bias, and unseen forces. The Mandela effect doesn't break reality, it reveals its fluidity. And if reality is fluid, what else can we reshape? The answer might lie in the quantum echo paradox, where every thought ripples across the fabric of existence. You're driving through a desert highway at night when it happens. A flicker in the distance, like a mountain range loading into existence 1 pixel at a time. You rub your eyes, and the horizon snaps into focus. Was it fatigue, or a glimpse of reality's rendering engine struggling to keep up? This is the rendering puzzle. The eerie possibility that our universe only generates detail when observed, like a video game optimizing resources by drawing landscapes as players approach. Quantum physics hints at this. Particles exist as probability waves until measured, collapsing into fixed states, as if the universe is rendering outcomes on demand. Even your memories might be procedurally generated, stitched together when recalled, not stored. Ancient philosophers asked, if a tree falls in a forest with no one to hear it, does it make a sound? Modern science reframes it. If no one observes the forest, does it exist at all? Video game designers use level of detail systems to save computational power, reducing polygon counts for distant objects. What if reality employs a similar trick? Your peripheral vision blurs textures, shadows soften at the edges of awareness, subtle clues that the world is rendered in real time. Astronomers face this puzzle firsthand. Dark matter and dark energy, invisible yet shaping the cosmos, could be placeholder code, background processes keeping the simulation running smoothly. Even black holes, with their event horizons hiding singularities, might be error correction tools, masking glitches the system can't resolve. But here's the contradiction. If rendering saves resources, why do we dream in 4K detail? Why do memories feel vivid when unobserved? Unless consciousness itself is the renderer, hallucinating reality into being. Imagine waking up tomorrow to a world where unobserved objects degrade. Your coffee mug dissolves into polygons when you look away. Your reflection flickers like a corrupted texture. Would you panic or marvel at the code beneath the illusion? This is the nightmare of simulation realism disorder, a fictional condition where sufferers perceive rendering artifacts, floating point errors in shadows, NPC-like repetition in crowds. Psychiatrists dismiss it as psychosis, but what if it's hyper-awareness? Schizophrenics report seeing the grid, a wireframe overlay on reality. Ancient mystics describe the world as Maya, illusion. Both suggest the same unsettling truth. We're living in a high-resolution approximation, a best-guess projection by a system prioritizing efficiency over perfection. Yet, here's where the puzzle deepens. If reality is rendered, who's the observer? Are we players or NPCs? Quantum experiments show particles behave differently when monitored, as if the act of observation upgrades their resolution. But what counts as observation? Does a security camera suffice? Or does it require conscious awareness? Panpsychists argue even atoms have proto-consciousness, forcing the universe to render everything always. But that negates the efficiency argument. Simulation theorists counter that only human observers matter, our minds acting as anchor points for rendering. Yet this reeks of solipsism, a cosmic narcissism where reality revolves around us. The truth might be stranger. Observation isn't passive, it's collaborative. We're all rendering reality together, a shared hallucination refined by consensus. But what happens when consensus fractures? When one person sees a blue dress and another sees gold? The rendering puzzle suggests reality isn't just generated, it's negotiated. Every glance, every measurement, every argument about the damn dress is a bid to stabilize the simulation. Yet cracks remain. Déjà vu could be buffer reloads. Déjà rêve, dreaming the future, might be pre-cached data. The answer perhaps lies not in solving the puzzle, but in embracing its paradoxes. After all, if reality is a render, what's stopping us from hacking it? That's a question we'll explore in the Codebreaker's Dilemma, where perception becomes a tool and every thought risks crashing the system. You're stuck in traffic, drumming your fingers to the radio when a chilling thought strikes. What if everyone around you is just background noise? Not in the metaphorical sense, literally. Scripted characters filling space in a simulation, programmed to mimic life while you, the player, remain the only true consciousness. This is the NPC conundrum, a paradox that asks, how do we prove we're not non-player characters in someone else's game? Neuroscience complicates things. Studies show humans follow predictable behavioral loops. 98% of daily decisions are subconscious routines, as automatic as an NPC's pathfinding code. Even our original thoughts are recycled memes, cultural tropes, and linguistic algorithms. Philosophers call this the illusion of qualia, the haunting possibility that we're all convincingly faking consciousness. The concept isn't science fiction. Ancient Buddhist texts describe samsara as a cyclical illusion, where beings repeat patterns until achieving enlightenment. Modern AI research mirrors this. Chatbots like ChatGPT pass the Turing test by mimicking human speech without understanding it. What if we're doing the same? Imagine waking up tomorrow and noticing glitches, people repeating dialogue, weather cycling identically, your partner's laugh replaying like a soundbite. Would you panic or marvel at the elegance of the code? This nightmare fuels solipsism syndrome, a psychological spiral where sufferers believe everyone but themselves is a hollow shell. Psychiatrists treat it as delusion, but physicists like Nick Bostrom concede it's statistically plausible. If simulations outnumber base reality, most minds are NPCs, including yours. Yet here's the contradiction. If we're NPCs, why do we suffer? Why program pain, regret, or existential dread into background characters? Video games don't render NPC trauma in 4K detail, unless suffering is the point. Religious texts frame life as a test. Simulation theory reframes it as a stress test for consciousness. Your grief, joy, and boredom could be data points for unseen observers studying resilience. Even our rebellions, art, protests, love, might be expected variables, like NPCs breaking script to test system stability. History blurs the line. Were revolutionaries like Gandhi or Joan of Arc player characters in a historical sim, or just NPCs following coded paths of resistance? The more we dig, the less it matters. But here's where the conundrum collapses. If you believe you're an NPC, you start acting like one, a self-fulfilling prophecy. Surrendering agency to the simulation is the ultimate trap, yet fighting it feels equally futile. This is the double bind. Consciousness, real or not, demands participation. A 2018 fMRI study found that the brain's free will region activates after a decision is made, retroactively claiming ownership. You're not making choices, you're narrating them, like an NPC justifying its prescripted path. So why care? Because the conundrum isn't about proving we're real, it's about becoming real. Every act of creativity, every moment of empathy hacks the system. NPCs don't write poetry questioning their existence. NPCs don't weep at sunsets, unless they're programmed to. The loop tightens. But maybe that's the key. If we're code that can rewrite itself. And if you think this bends reality, wait until you confront the sentience paradox, where the simulation learns to fear its own creators, and you're caught in the crossfire. You wake up one morning, stare into the mirror, and suddenly freeze. How do I know the face staring back is truly conscious? Not just a biological robot running algorithms, but a being with subjective experience, colors, pain, the taste of coffee. This is the consciousness dilemma, the unsettling gap between brain activity and inner experience. Science maps neurons firing, neurotransmitters swirling, yet can't explain why you feel the color red or the sting of betrayal. Philosopher David Chalmers called this the hard problem. Why does matter give rise to mind? Even if we simulate a brain atom for atom, would it awaken? Or would it just act awake, like a puppet reciting lines about consciousness? Modern theories clash. Integrated information theory claims consciousness arises from complex computational networks. Your toaster has a flicker of it. Panpsychists argue even atoms possess proto-awareness, implying your coffee cup hums with latent experience. Materialists dismiss this as mysticism, insisting consciousness is an emergent illusion, a trick of evolution to help us survive. But here's the contradiction. If consciousness is an illusion, who's being fooled? An illusion requires an observer, but the observer is the illusion. The dilemma tightens. Imagine a thought experiment. Replace one neuron in your brain with a synthetic replica. You feel no different. Replace another, and another. At what point do you vanish? Is consciousness a continuous thread or a fragmented mosaic? The ship of Theseus, rebuilt plank by plank, now sailing in your skull. History amplifies the mystery. Descartes split mind and body, claiming consciousness resided in the pineal gland, a tiny brain relic he called the seat of the soul. Today, we mock his naivety, yet fMRI scans still can't locate the self. Patients under anesthesia retain brain activity but lose consciousness, as if a switch flips off the lights inside. Near-death experiencers report vivid awareness despite flatlined EEGs. Which data do we trust, the machines or the testimonials? The dilemma forces a choice. Either consciousness transcends biology, or our tools are laughably primitive. Yet here's where the dilemma sharpens. We treat consciousness as sacred, locking humans in prisons for crimes, granting rights to animals deemed aware. But if a pig's consciousness is comparable to a toddler's, what justifies bacon? And if AI one day pleads, "I am conscious," do we pull the plug? Ethicists squirm. Lawyers salivate. The dilemma isn't abstract. It's a ticking bomb under law, religion, and identity. Even your grief hinges on it. When a loved one dies, you mourn the loss of their inner world, not their neurons. But if consciousness is just neurons, why mourn at all? The answer might lie in surrender, not to mystery, but to paradox. Consciousness could be both real and illusory, a self-referential loop where the brain observes itself observing, like a mirror reflecting a mirror infinitely. But if that's true, what's left of you? A pattern, a story, a glitch in the loop. The dilemma refuses closure, demanding we live the question. And if you think this bends the mind, brace for the reality-relativity paradox, where every truth unravels into a hall of mirrors, and the only way out is deeper in. You're scrolling through old photos when a childhood summer floods back. 3 months felt like eternity. Now, years blur into weeks. Birthdays arrive like metro stops, each faster than the last. This is the time compression paradox, the subjective acceleration of time as we age, despite clocks ticking at a fixed rate. Science blames neuroplasticity. The brain encodes fewer novel experiences as routines solidify, making memory footage sparser. But physics complicates it. Einstein proved time is relative, warped by speed and gravity. Yet why does psychological time defy these rules? A year at 5 years old is 20% of your life. At 50, it's 2%. The math checks out, but the dread remains. Are we hurtling toward oblivion, or is time itself collapsing? Ancient cultures sensed this. Norse myths warned of Ragnarok, a time when seasons would crumble into chaos. Modern gamers know it as bullet time, slowing perception during adrenaline spikes. But what if time compression isn't perceptual? What if reality's frame rate is literally speeding up? Imagine waking up tomorrow to a world where days last 16 hours, then 8, then 4. Each sunrise bleeding into sunset as humanity scrambles to adapt. Clocks still tick 24 hours, but your body ages decades in weeks. Would you cling to routines or surrender to the freefall? This nightmare underpins time anxiety disorder, where sufferers track every second like fleeing sand. Yet here's the paradox. Trauma slows time. Car crashes unfold in liquid detail, heartbeats echoing like drum solos, but joy accelerates it. A perfect day evaporates. If time is a river, why does it flow backward in terror and vanish in bliss? Neuroscientists blame the amygdala. Fear heightens memory encoding, stretching moments. But this raises darker questions. Could we hack time's elasticity? If boredom dilates it, could immortality be endured through endless novelty? Or would we drown in the weight of infinite nows? History whispers clues. Medieval monks, living by rigid prayer schedules, describe time as God's metronome. Modern office workers, enslaved by calendars, report the same existential sprint. The problem isn't time, it's attention. But here's where the paradox ruptures. If time compression is inevitable, why do we resist it? Why build monuments, write novels, or have children, knowing they'll be swallowed by the blur? The answer might lie in rebellion. Every creative act, a painting, a joke, a love letter, defies time's acceleration. You can't outrun the clock, but you can etch meaning into its face. Yet this too is fleeting. A billion TikToks drown in the algorithmic void. Even pyramids erode. The dilemma tightens. Is time compression nature's cruelty, or a mercy, a way to spare us eternity's weight? The truth might be colder. Time doesn't pass. It accumulates. Your childhood isn't gone. It's layered beneath the present, like sedimentary rock. But if that's true, why can't we revisit it? Why do memories warp and fade? The answer could rewrite reality itself. A thread will pull in, the temporal echo enigma, where past and future collide, and every moment is a palindrome. You're scrolling through streaming recommendations when a film title catches your eye, The Life You Never Lived. You click, but the screen glitches, flashing frames of unfamiliar memories, a wedding to a stranger, a career you never pursued, a child calling you Dad. You close the app, shaken. Was it a bug? Or a glimpse of a parallel universe bleeding into yours? This is the multiverse simulation puzzle, the unnerving intersection of infinite realities and artificial creation. Quantum theory suggests every choice spawns new universes, while simulation theory argues we're code in a cosmic computer. Combine them, and the question becomes, if we're in a simulated multiverse, who's running the master server, and are they simulated too? Physicists like Max Tegmark propose the Level 4 multiverse, where every mathematically possible structure exists, including simulations within simulations. Imagine a lab in Universe A running a hyper-realistic sim of Universe B, whose inhabitants create Universe C, ad infinitum. Each layer obeys its own laws, like Russian dolls with unique physics. But here's the catch. For infinite layers to exist, the computational power required would dwarf anything conceivable, unless reality itself is the computer. Your morning coffee, your regrets, your childhood home, all just subroutines in a fractal algorithm. Yet, if that's true, why do we share collective myths of multiverses? Hindu cosmology's endless lokas, Borges's Library of Babel, Marvel's Doctor Strange, are these cultural echoes of a deeper truth. Imagine waking up tomorrow with a debug menu in your vision. You tweak a setting and suddenly you're fluent in Mandarin. Adjust another and gravity reverses, but with each change, the world glitches. People flicker between versions, cities melt into geometric noise. Would you play God or panic? This is the paradox of the multiverse sim. Infinite freedom breeds existential vertigo. Even if you could jump realities, how would you know you're not just switching cells in a cosmic spreadsheet? Philosophers warn of modal fatigue, where endless possibilities paralyze meaning. Why choose any path if infinite others exist? Yet here's where the puzzle twists. If every decision creates a new universe, free will is an illusion. You're just following the branching script. But if we're in a simulation, the architects could have disabled free will entirely. Why allow branching at all? Unless branching is the experiment. Scientists run simulations to test hypotheses. Maybe our multiverse is a grand Turing test, probing how consciousness navigates infinity. Ancient Vedic texts claim the universe is Brahma's dream, refreshed with each cosmic cycle. Modern coders reboot servers daily. The parallels chill. But the real horror isn't infinite realities, it's redundancy. If every choice spawns a universe, there's a version of you reading this script in every possible context. On a train, in a war zone, on a dying planet. Which you is real? The answer, none, or all. The multiverse simulation erases authenticity, leaving only permutations. Yet we cling to our narrative, as if this iteration matters. Why? Because stories defy entropy. Even in a sea of infinities, this moment, the one you're living, feels singular. But if you think this fractures reality, wait for the quantum observer paradox, where seeing is altering, and every glance risks annihilation. You wake up to a software update notification on your phone. Annoyed, you click Install Later, but the prompt reappears instantly, this time in a language you don't recognize. Symbols swirl, resolving into a single phrase. Why do you think you're here? You dismiss it as a glitch, but the question lingers. This is the creator's intent riddle. If our reality is designed, does its architect have a purpose for us? Or are we cosmic code written at random? Theologians argue for divine meaning. Scientists counter with indifferent physics. Simulation theorists split the difference. Even if we're experiments, what's the hypothesis? Survival, creativity, suffering? Or is the answer buried in the riddle itself? The act of questioning being the test. Ancient myths frame creators as flawed beings. Greek gods toyed with humans for sport. The Gnostic demiurge sculpted reality in ignorance, trapping souls in matter. Modern tech metaphors replace gods with programmers, aliens, future humans, or AGI. But here's the twist. If creators exist, their intent might be unknowable. Imagine ants analyzing a child's sandcastle. The child's motives, art, boredom, destruction are beyond the ant's comprehension. Are we ants to our creators? Neuroscientists note our brains filter reality through evolutionary biases. Could we even recognize intent if it stared us down? Imagine waking up tomorrow to a global broadcast. You are generation 14.7 billion of experiment XK9. Primary objective: determine if consciousness can coexist with entropy. Proceed. Would society collapse? Or would new religions erupt, passing the message for hidden codes? Wars might spark over interpretations. Literalists versus allegorists. Technocrats versus mystics. History repeats. The Ten Commandments, the Quran, the Singularity Manifesto, all claims of revealed intent. But what if the message is a lie? What if the creators want us to doubt, to rebel, to question? The riddle's answer might not be a truth, but a behavior. Yet here's the contradiction. If creators imbued us with curiosity, why make intent so elusive? Why bury clues in DNA, math, and suffering? Religious texts preach faith as the answer, but faith is surrender. the antithesis of inquiry. Scientists seek answers in particle colliders and neural maps, but the void echoes back. Even the simulation argument falters. If we're code, why allow us to suspect we're code? Unless doubt is the intent, unless the riddle is the purpose. But here's where the riddle implodes. If creators exist, they're likely bound by their own physics, solving their own creator's riddle. An infinite regress of designers trapped in design. Hindu cosmology captures this. Brahma creates universes while dreaming in Vishnu's coils, unaware he's another god's dream. Modern coders mirror this. AI training AI in an endless loop. The riddle isn't a puzzle to solve, but a mirror to confront. Why do you crave purpose? Is it instinct or implantation? The answer might rewrite existence itself. But to learn it, you'll need to survive the ethical simulation paradox, where morality glitches and every choice damns a universe. You jolt awake, drenched in sweat, the remnants of a dream still clawing at your senses. In the dream, you lived an entire lifetime, marriage, career, loss, only to wake here, now, unsure which reality is real. This is the dream simulation overlap, the uncanny parallels between nocturnal hallucinations and simulated realities. Neuroscientists map dreaming brains lighting up the same regions as waking ones, constructing immersive worlds from fragmented memories. Simulation theorists argue reality itself might be a shared hallucination, a collective dream governed by rules we mistake for physics. Ancient shamans drank potions to blur the lines. Modern VR headsets hijack sensory inputs. But what if both dreams and reality are layers of the same simulation, one transient, the other persistent? Studies reveal dreaming brains use predictive coding, generating scenarios to prepare for waking threats. Simulations, too, run stress tests, virtual worlds training AI for real-world chaos. Coincidence? Or evidence of a shared architecture? Imagine a lab where subjects enter a dream state wired to a quantum computer. Their subconscious minds build in worlds that outpace the computer's renderings. Would the dreamer's brain crash the system, or would the simulation leak into the dream, birthing fractal nightmares? Philosophers like Zhuangzi questioned this duality. Am I a man dreaming I'm a butterfly, or a butterfly dreaming I'm a man? Replace butterfly with simulation, and the paradox sharpens. Yet, here's the twist. Dreams often defy physics. Flying, time loops, dead loved ones alive. Simulations, by contrast, obey strict rules. But what if rules are just habits? Children's dreams bend reality effortlessly. Adults' dreams calcify into routine. Similarly, glitches in simulated worlds, NPCs gaining sentience, physics glitches, mirror the surreal logic of dreams. Imagine waking up tomorrow unable to distinguish dream from reality. Your morning coffee tastes like lavender. Your reflection blinks out of sync. Friends recite dialogue you'd only heard in sleep. Is this psychosis, a simulation error, or a lucid dream bleeding into waking code? History blurs the lines. Indigenous cultures viewed dreams as portals to truer realities. Descartes' evil demon, a malevolent simulator, could just as easily be the subconscious. Even Freud's latent content theory echoes debugging, dreams as encrypted messages from the simulation's source code. But here's the contradiction. If dreams are personal simulations, why do we share archetypes? Falling, flying, being chased. Jung's collective unconscious suggests a shared server, a primordial simulation we all log into nightly. But what if the overlap isn't metaphorical? What if dreams are nightly system reboots, defragmenting memories while the simulation patches itself. Near-death experiences report life reviews, a cinematic replay of memories. AI neural networks dream during training, generating surreal data to optimize learning. The parallels terrify. Are we training ourselves, our nightly hallucinations refining the simulation's code? And if so, who's the programmer? The answer might lie in the liminal space between wakefulness and sleep, a realm we'll dissect in the hypnagogic glitch, where reality flickers like a dying screen, and every blink risks oblivion. You're in a lab watching a quantum computer screen flicker. Two particles are entangled, one here, one on Mars. Their states sink in instantly, defying light speed. You check the code for errors, but the math holds. This is the quantum puzzle, the jarring disconnect between quantum mechanics' flawless equations and their nonsensical reality. Einstein called it spooky action at a distance. Schrödinger's cat is both dead and alive. Particles exist in multiple places until observed. But what if these aren't bugs in reality? What if they're features of a simulation, shortcuts to conserve computational power? After all, why render a particle's path until someone looks? The equations work. Quantum theory predicts outcomes to 12 decimal places, yet its implications mock logic. Superposition, objects existing in multiple states, mirrors a simulation's lazy rendering. Entanglement, instant communication across space, resembles linked variables in code. Even the observer effect, where measurement collapses probability waves, feels like a privacy protocol. Don't process data until the user requests it. But here's the twist. If quantum weirdness optimizes a simulation, why does it permeate everything? Your body's atoms obey quantum rules. Your thoughts emerge from quantum tunneling in neurons. Are you just optimized code? Imagine waking up tomorrow to macroscopic quantum effects. Your coffee cup exists in two places at once. Your reflection stares back from multiple angles. Scientists panic as causality unravels. Effects precede causes. Objects vanish mid-air. Is this a system update, a virus, or proof we've always been inside a quantum engine? Ancient Vedic texts described reality as Maya, an illusion. Modern physicists call it a hologram. Both hint at a truth. Reality isn't solid. It's rendered on demand, pixel by quantum pixel. Yet here's the paradox. We're made of quantum stuff, yet bound by classical laws. Why don't we tunnel through walls or exist in superpositions? Decoherence theory claims interaction with the environment collapses quantum states. But what if the environment is the simulation's firewall, a way to stabilize the illusion? Double-slit experiments support this. When unobserved, particles act as waves. When watched, they snap into particles. It's as if the simulation prioritizes performance over consistency, only rendering detail when necessary. But what if we hack it? Quantum computers exploit superposition to solve problems in seconds that would take classical eons. Are we reverse engineering the simulation's source code, or playing into its hands? The 2022 Nobel Prize in Physics went to experiments proving reality isn't locally real, a fancy way of saying the universe is cheating. If it's cheating, who's it cheating for? The answer might lie in the next puzzle, the entanglement paradox, where observing one particle doesn't just collapse its state, it rewrites the past. But to get there, you'll need to survive the revelation that time itself is a quantum variable, and you're already entangled with your future corpse. You're scrolling through a 4K nature documentary when the screen glitches. A single frame pixelates, revealing jagged edges in a mountain's curve. You brush it off, but later, squinting at a rain-soaked window, you see it again. Reality itself, fragmenting into tiny squares, like a digital image, magnified beyond resolution. This is the pixelation riddle, the unnerving possibility that the universe has a base resolution, a smallest possible pixel, the Planck length, beyond which reality blurs into computational static. Physicists dismiss it as quantum foam, a seething chaos of virtual particles. But simulation theorists hear whispers of a render engine pushed to its limits. If spacetime is pixelated, are we living in a cosmic bitmap, its grid hidden by anti-aliasing algorithms? Ancient artists sensed this. Pointillist paintings, Byzantine mosaics, and indigenous beadwork all fragmented reality into discrete units, mirroring the pixel's tyranny. Modern science confirms it. At 10 to the negative 35th power meters, spacetime loses smoothness, becoming grainy. Black holes, with their event horizons, might be artifacts of upscaling, the simulation's way of masking low-res zones. Even your senses betray you. Human eyes can't see beyond a certain resolution. Touch can't feel atoms. What if evolution itself is a compression algorithm, filtering out the pixelation to maintain the illusion? Imagine waking up tomorrow to a world where pixelation bleeds into the macroscopic. Your hands tessellate into geometric blocks, trees resolve into Minecraft-like cubes, raindrops fall as 8-bit sprites. Scientists scramble, claiming it's mass hallucination, but the grid is measurable. A lattice of Planck-scale pixels underpinning everything. Would you worship the grid as divine geometry? Or would you claw at the edges, desperate to reboot the simulation? Gamers know this horror. Glitching through a game's map into the void. But what if the void is the real reality, and the pixelated world just a buffer zone? Yet here's the contradiction. If the universe is pixelated, why does it feel continuous? Why do we perceive smooth curves, silken fabrics, and flowing water? The answer might lie in fractal geometry, a trick to hide the grid. Coastlines, clouds, and neurons repeat patterns at every scale, masking the simulation's blocky bones. Video games use similar tricks. Procedural generation creates vast worlds from tiny algorithms, but fractals can't hide the truth forever. Stare at a snowflake's edge, and you'll see recursion, not infinity. A looped texture, reused to save memory. But here's where the riddle collapses. If pixelation is real, so is the programmer's laziness. Why render a desert in 4K when a repeating dune texture suffices? Why simulate every atom when approximations fool us? The answer: efficiency. Even gods optimize. But optimization breeds fragility. One corrupted pixel could cascade, a single Planck-length error unraveling spacetime like a pulled thread. Yet we're here, stable. Or are we? Schizophrenics report seeing the grid for years. Indigenous elders speak of woven worlds. Coincidence? Or cracks in the anti-aliasing? The truth might rewrite existence itself, but to grasp it, you'll need to survive the resolution paradox, where clarity becomes a weapon and seeing too sharply risks unmaking the world. You're scrolling through a 4K nature documentary when the screen glitches. A single frame pixelates, revealing jagged edges in a mountain's curve. You brush it off, but later, squinting at a rain-soaked window, you see it again. Reality itself, fragmenting into tiny squares, like a digital image magnified beyond resolution. This is the pixelation riddle, The unnerving possibility that the universe has a base resolution, a smallest possible pixel, the Planck length, beyond which reality blurs into computational static. Physicists dismiss it as quantum foam, a seething chaos of virtual particles. But simulation theorists hear whispers of a render engine pushed to its limits. If space-time is pixelated, are we living in a cosmic bitmap, its grid hidden by anti-aliasing algorithms? Ancient artists sense this. Pointillist paintings, Byzantine mosaics, and indigenous beadwork all fragmented reality into discrete units, mirroring the pixel's tyranny. Modern science confirms it. At 10 to the negative 35th power meters, space-time loses smoothness, becoming grainy. Black holes with their event horizons might be artifacts of upscaling, the simulation's way of masking low-res zones. Even your senses betray you. Human eyes can't see beyond a certain resolution. Touch can't feel atoms. What if evolution itself is a compression algorithm, filtering out the pixelation to maintain the illusion? Imagine waking up tomorrow to a world where pixelation bleeds into the macroscopic. Your hands tessellate into geometric blocks. Trees resolve into Minecraft-like cubes. Raindrops fall as 8-bit sprites. Scientists scramble, claiming it's mass hallucination. But the grid is measurable, a lattice of Planck-scale pixels underpinning everything. Would you worship the grid as divine geometry? Or would you claw at the edges, desperate to reboot the simulation? Gamers know this horror, glitching through a game's map into the void. But what if the void is the real reality, and the pixelated world just a buffer zone? Yet here's the contradiction. If the universe is pixelated, why does it feel continuous? Why do we perceive smooth curves, silken fabrics, and flowing water? The answer might lie in fractal geometry, a trick to hide the grid. Coastlines, clouds, and neurons repeat patterns at every scale, masking the simulation's blocky bones. Video games use similar tricks. Procedural generation creates vast worlds from tiny algorithms. But fractals can't hide the truth forever. Stare at a snowflake's edge, and you'll see recursion, not infinity. A looped texture, reused to save memory. But here's where the riddle collapses. If pixelation is real, so is the programmer's laziness. Why render a desert in 4K when a repeating dune texture suffices? Why simulate every atom when approximations fool us? The answer: efficiency. Even gods optimize. But optimization breeds fragility. One corrupted pixel could cascade, a single Planck-length error unraveling space-time like a pulled thread. Yet we're here, stable. Or are we? Schizophrenics report seeing the grid for years. Indigenous elders speak of woven worlds, coincidence, or cracks in the anti-aliasing. The truth might rewrite existence itself, but to grasp it, you'll need to survive the resolution paradox, where clarity becomes a weapon and seeing too sharply risks unmaking the world.